Good evening, everyone. Om Shanti. Welcome to all of you. Here we are on our last session of Soul Smart, but that's the beginning of the new series. It's not ending. We all know that. So let's just see what all we learned in our last session. I collected some points. I would like to share them with you. The higher the soul gets, the more silent the soul becomes. The highest form, there is no discernment. More the intellect is relaxed and connected to the truth, it needs less to work on the discernment. The moment you stop listening to what someone should do, I think it was done in uh, rush, but it's not right. The moment you stop discerning to what someone should do, you give space for them to decide for themselves. Don't jump too quickly on advising people what to do. Remove the influence of the impact of others' virtues that are left on the soul before discriminating. Become clean and clear. In a relationship, we care deep enough to allow freedom to others. Then we also saw what would be the ego of the intellect, discerning other people's decision. And then we saw deep understanding points of knowledge. Everyone has a part to play in this drama. Once discernment is done, do not think about its outcome because drama is perfect. For conscience, which is called Vivek in Hindi, for conscience to work in a refined way, you need to be Yog Yukt and Yukti Yukt. The realized and enlightened conscience will never use the truth as a weapon. You don't see the last line, but I believe it is the realized and enlightened conscience softens you. And the last point was to discern the discernment of the truth. So we know we have come to the truth, but is the person ready to receive that truth? Those are some knowledge jewels that I found from the last session. And we welcome Sister Gayatri to take us to today's session where we are going to be expert in writing the chart.
Thank you, Kiran. And before I go into the different elements to look at in writing a chart, why don't we collectively go into the reflection of what it means to be a chart writer? First of all, what is the chart? And what do chart writers need to pay attention to? So could we do that first, and then I will start the session. But it's lovely to see all of you show up for this session. We're calling it Seasons. And so this is called the spring season, 7 episodes. Then there will be a summer season, and there will be a fall season, and then there will be a winter season of 7 sessions each. So it gives you time to go back into the depth of Baba's knowledge in relation to these subjects and to explore it deeply. But for this year, 2025, all the sessions will be on Soul Smart. Soul Smart will continue to be the overarching theme. And under that, we will explore different things that Baba is asking us to pay attention to in terms of our spiritual development and becoming soul smart in terms of our responses to what's happening in the world. So let us go into reflection and we will together look at what it means to be a chart writer. Om Shanti, everyone. How are you doing? Good. Did you enjoy the video, the reflection on what it means to be a chart writer?
Yeah, totally different from how we do it.
Beautiful.
Really?
Yeah, it's
Beautiful.
mhm.
Very powerful. Oh my gosh.
It is, isn't it, Rita? But that's the fullness of writing a chart, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Mm. So hopefully today we will leave this session with a commitment for 6 months. And as you all know, that whatever I'm sharing with you is taken from Baba's Murlis, of what he is asking of us and how he is explaining to us the method with which to do it. And so if there is a method that is going to be most effective for us, that is the method he is then explaining to us that we should use. So I went through a few Murlis on Baba explaining this concept of chart and how important it is for us to be writing our charts, be paying attention to the charts. And actually, he divided it into, as I was reading it, I divided it into 3 levels of learning, then of loving, and then of living. Because I think that the chart is actually to get us to on a learning curve of self-development and self-transformation, because the chart is definitely connected to self-transformation. But it is also connecting us to self-love. What is it about me that Baba loves so much that I must also love for myself? Because if I just look at it, what is it I love for myself? It could come out a little bit with, this kind of self-righteousness. But if I look at myself through my chart to see how Baba loves me, and then I love myself based on that, it's quite different. But the chart is also deep changes within myself, within my sanskaras, which will result in the changing of particularly my habits and my behaviors. Those changes you'll see start showing up in the way we're living. And so I've divided it into 3 levels of living, of learning, loving, and living. So within these 3, it's the elementary level of writing a chart. Then there's the, sorry, I don't know what's in my throat today. Then there's the intermediate, and then I call it the advanced. So it's like the basic, then it's from the basic means the physical to the subtle, and then from the subtle to the elevated. And so I know that there will be questions, so I hope to finish this within 20 to 30 minutes so that it allows you to engage in the way you will do your chart. The ask of you today from this session, this 7th session of Soul Smart, focusing on charting your course. Now, you're writing the chart so that you're tracking the course of your self-growth and your self-development, and particularly your self-transformation. So the first thing, if I'm a chart writer, why am I doing it? Why am I feeling it is important to write a chart? And the reason it's important to write a chart is to be obedient to an ask. Baba is asking us to do this. And the commitment is, in order for it to become deeply etched within my soul, something that is important as breathing is, as movement is, as the things that the body would do very naturally are, then this commitment for 6 months of doing a chart in a consistent way, using the accurate method, would then put us on a track of making effort and to measure the progress based on those efforts. So I'm being obedient to something that Baba is asking of me. I'm doing it within a time period of 6 months, because it will etch in the soul something that will become very natural to it. And the consistency of using the right method of doing my chart, with the aim of tracking my effort, of making efforts and tracking the progress that I'm making. So an accurate chart is something that allows me to be in touch with my experiences as they are occurring. And the experiences, the movement of the experiences, are they taking me in a progressive upward spiral, or is it taking me on a progressive downward spiral? So I don't know if you will say going down would be something that is progressive or not, but is it taking me in a downward spiral, or is it progressing me in a forward-looking upward spiral? And within both, you would feel a change in the soul. So if my efforts are not according to the right method, then I may feel a stagnation, or I may feel a slippage back into the past, because it will bring up emotions and it will bring up reactions that are laying dormant in the soul. And as soon as the soul comes to a standstill, it starts slipping back into those. Then I need not so much to check the effort, because I'm making the effort, but what is the method that I'm using with the efforts I'm making? And then if the method is wrong, then I will feel that slippage. But if the method is accurate, then I would feel the upward progressive spiral taking me up. And so the first level of making this effort of keeping a chart or writing a chart, Baba says the first, for the beginners, then for the first timers, the beginners, what he's asking us to do is to look at the chart of our senses. So we are going to now create a relationship, because when I'm told I'm a soul and I am a separate entity from the body, what I have to do with that information, with that point of knowledge, of that truth, is to create a relationship with my body. And that's the basic of soul consciousness. So it is as though I have to conquer the 5 vices. And the 5 vices are in the way I think and in the way I act. So I start looking at my thoughts and I start looking at my actions. But in between the two, Baba says, it's your senses. And so keeping the chart for beginners, he said it's very important to keep a chart as a beginner on looking at your senses, because he says you're a spiritual army and you're conquering Maya. And Maya is illusions. Maya is the force of illusions. And Maya is very powerful because illusions are very subtle, but very powerful. They influence us in a very powerful way, and they deceive us through our sense organs. This is the way Maya works, through the sense organs. So why is it for a beginner, the chart must be one in which you're looking at your physical sense organs, is so that you are tracking your progress, that you are not being deceived by your sense organs. So we have to examine each and every one of our sense organs. We have to look at which sense organ is causing the most damage. For instance, what is causing that reaction? What is triggering me through my sense organs? Is it that the way I listen? Is it the way I see? Is it my food, the way I taste things? Is it my words, the way I'm speaking? So I have to pay attention to how illusions, how Maya is deceiving me through my sense organs. And as it happens, I have to take a diary with me. He's suggesting to walk with a little diary. And as soon as you observe that you were deceived by any one of your sense organs, track it in that moment. Write it in the moment it happened, or as soon as you can after it has happened. Don't wait until the evening to do it, but do it in the moment it has happened. Because what you're doing, he's saying illusion is your greatest and most subtle enemy. And you're paying great attention to this illusion of Maya through your senses, not to be deceived. So he says, a sensible child who is, how do I know I'm sensible? It's because I am now being aware of the knowledge that I listen to, and I'm noting down how my senses are kind of moving me away from this knowledge that Bob is asking me to practice with my sense organs. So he says, you will keep a diary in your pocket and you will keep noting down when this happened. When is the point of departure from the truth to ignorance? And when the senses are influenced by that ignorance and the senses are no longer acting in accordance with the truth that Bob is giving you. So you will then track that and put it in your diary. And he says, this makes you very cautious. And you will keep checking those sense organs. And what you're checking for is that they don't deceive you. But what you are changing, wanting to change, is you're wanting to transform those sense organs. So you're checking to see where you're deceived, and you're wanting to change the sense organs, change it in a way that it will bring you benefit. So he gave an example and he says, okay, take the sense organs of the eyes. He says, Maya deceives, even children may be making efforts for a long period of time, but the eyes are so subtle that Maya can deceive you through vision or through sight. So he says that you may be engaged in doing service, very good service, but then there comes a time in which you encounter a situation, and the way you see that situation is then influenced by a sanskara that is lying within you. And that sanskara emerges and puts a kind of a blur onto the way you will see that situation. And that sanskara and that blur is deceiving you from seeing the reality of the situation, and you're seeing it through a preconceived notion that has been hidden within you. And he says that can cause you a lot of damage because you are deceived in that moment. So the example was a very gross example he gave. He says, if there is still a dependency lying within you to get the support of another human being, and you're serving that human being, and you're emotionally vulnerable, this sanskara shows up, and your eye is looking at this individual, and you are emotionally vulnerable, the thought that will emerge from within you that will deceive you is that you would look toward this individual for some form of support. And he said it could be as basic as the attraction between a man and a woman. It's that the man or the woman would say something to one another, and the emotional vulnerability would be, I want to be comforted by this person. I want to be held by this person. I want to feel the warmth of this person. So he says that's how you're going to be deceived. And the eyes is what is deceiving you at this moment. So if that occurs, he said, okay, it has occurred. Don't start beating yourself up for it. But do not, as soon as you catch it, as soon as you're aware that this is happening to you, he says, do not remain there standing and allowing yourself to be consumed by the emotion of what is emerging or by what you're wanting from this other person. Because he says, as soon as you become aware that this is occurring, you must now know that your vision is deceiving you with that vice of lust. And he says, how this will manifest in you is through your behavior. Your behavior would instantly change. And your behavior would change first and foremost toward yourself. You would then see yourself as a needy person. You will see yourself as someone who is still emotionally needy. You will see yourself as someone who wants support from another human being emotionally. And that's all, that whole trajectory that suddenly got created within you was through your eyes. And so this illusion of Maya is deceiving you through your eyes. So Baba is saying this is why he makes us physically do a Rakhi ceremony. And Rakhi is coming up in August. He says, because this festival of Rakhi is that when you tie that string around the wrist of the other, you have to give and take drishti. And in that drishti is the promise of a relationship based on purity through the eye. And he says that after that kind of experience, your eyes should never deceive you again when you're looking at your fellow human beings. So this was the example he gave of how we should check our vision. Am I seeing that soul, the other, as a soul? And am I, or is there any departure from a soul conscious vision? And if it is, take out that diary that you're carrying and write it down that this happened. So he says you have to check your chart every day, and you're checking not just vision, but you're checking every sense organ. So he says the tongue is no less, and the tongue is taste. So he says Baba is telling us that don't get trapped by taste, and particularly food. Don't eat the wrong types of food that will cause distress to the body. Don't eat the wrong types of food that will create emotional reactions, such as onions, garlic, which means they work with our temperaments. They may be good for some elements of body cleansing, but when it comes to emotions, they erupt our emotions. We're not able to control our emotions, particularly of anger, impatience, and arrogance, and those kinds of subtler emotions. So he says the tongue is no less. And what the tongue does, he says, is that put us in a kind of a spin that if I'm not able to eat something because of the health of my body, I would secretly in my mind desire it. So even though I'm telling the tongue not to taste it, the tongue is secretly, the soul, the sense of the taste is tempting the soul at the level of thought to want it, and he's calling it secretly. And then we may go when no one is in the kitchen, and we may take out that ice cream, and we may just eat the whole tub of ice cream. So he says that to do that is like stealing. And so taste could lead you to this other deception of stealing what it is you can't have for good reasons. And you will go behind everyone's back, but you don't do it behind Baba's back because he's looking at you, and you would steal that food and you will eat it. So he says, after you've eaten it, then there's repentance. And anytime there's repentance for having been deceived by your sense organs, it would be considered a sin. So he says that to put that in your chart at the time it's happening is allowing you to be a detached observer to how the illusions of Maya affect you, influence you, and make you do things in the moment which you would otherwise not do. So it gives you a sense of detachment, and it is very important to be doing that. He says, if you don't do it, what happens is that if you allow the illusions of Maya to deceive you through your senses, whether it's a sense of sight, ear, listening, tongue, tasting or speaking, touch, wanting to touch others. He says, if you don't pay attention to them in the moment and write your chart about them, track them in that diary, then they will become entrenched habits in the soul. They will be considered bad habits. And once it becomes a habit, then to transform that habit, he says, will become very difficult. And so because habits hold you, they trap the soul in the name and form of whatever it is the soul has a weakness to. So the first one for the beginners is keep a chart of your physical senses, how they're deceiving you. You can even do it as though you're doing an account, and then you're counting for every time there is a loss in something that was done in your business. You treat this as a business, and every time your senses deceive you, you treat it as a loss that you have to document, that you have to report on. And he says that keeping a chart is actually a Shrimat. And so if I'm keeping this chart, then I'm following that Shrimat. And in every day's Murli, Baba will give you a direction of how to continue deepening this chart. And then he says, but the caution is Maya will put obstacles in your way. She wouldn't allow you to follow Baba's Shrimat because the Shrimat is the accurate method of dealing with the senses, and Maya will put more temptations in your way to follow those Shrimat. But he says this is why the chart is important, because the more you do that chart, is the clearer the accurate method will become to you, because every day Baba will deepen the understanding of the accurate method in relation to your senses and how to conquer Maya and the obstacles that Maya will put in front of you. So then the caution here is, he says, do not forget that being deceived by your senses is making mistakes. Those are the mistakes we make, is when we're deceived by our senses. And we have to understand that when a mistake is made, we will repent for that mistake. So he says, create a relationship with your physical senses. and check in with them after you have tracked it the whole day. At the night, check in with your physical senses, asking your physical senses, why have you deceived me in that moment? So it is as though when you're asking the physical senses that question, the sanskara that caused the deception will also show itself to you. But you have to take yourself into silence, and you have to look at the problems as they are occurring during the day, and you've captured in your diary, and you've taken into silence in order to capture solutions. At night, what you will do is that you will then emerge with a clear understanding of this is the sanskara that caused that deception in that moment. And then he says you'll begin to count your blessings, and counting your blessings mean you caught it at the level of the sanskara. And you were able to transform that sanskara because you will then give it to Baba at night in your chart. And then you will be able, Baba will help you to transform that sanskara. And I thought that was such a beautiful method that he gave us, that it would be very, very beautiful for us to follow, and to follow that Srimad in relation to our physical senses, because that's the basic, that's the beginning. Now, the intermediate level that he talked about was remembrance, because he says nothing happened. When you're looking at a chart, even with your physical senses, when at night you come to evaluate what you were deceived by and how to get out of that deception, he says you have to do it in Baba's remembrance. And so even when you're looking at your senses, to see how they're deceiving you, you don't do it outside of Baba's remembrance. So when we first come to Baba, remembrance isn't that developed. Remembrance is a little bit, like, okay, let me just remember Baba, but it's just a thought. It is not a relationship I'm having with Baba. But as I do this thing with my senses, my physical senses, when I keep the chart with my physical senses and tracking how they are deceiving me, and at night when I give it to Baba, then I'll begin to understand. He says it's like an intermediate level, or I'm saying it's an intermediate level, in which then you begin to see the importance of Baba's remembrance throughout the day. And without Baba's remembrance, you won't even be able to pick up the moments that your senses are deceiving you. You're beginning to see that. But he says that doesn't happen immediately. That is when you matured into keeping this chart, you begin to see the importance of also including in your chart the number of times you were able to be in Baba's remembrance. Because he says that there will be situations, there will be people, there will be Mother Nature, there will be Maya, of course. All of them will come and attack you during the day. And how they attack you is that they consume your self with influences. So he says the reason that Baba's remembrance, you need to keep a chart of Baba's remembrance, is because the remembrance of Baba is filling you, the soul, with the power of your original self. And so every second or every minute, and that was why 60 seconds is all it takes to fill the soul with Baba's love. And that's what we do for traffic control. So every traffic control that I do, in that traffic control, I will then enter it onto my chart of remembrance. But what am I entering into my chart of remembrance is how much did I experience Baba filling me, the soul, with his love that returns me to my original state of being. The original state of being is one in which I feel my divinity, my dignity, and my self-worth. And that's what Baba's love enables me to feel in that second. So Baba says there are two things that your chart, you keeping a chart of remembrance, you are progressing in your remembrance of Baba. You're getting closer to Baba. You're drawing more on Baba's strength and support. It's a natural to-go place. This is where I need to go as soon as I feel a little bit of a panic. I need to go there and I need to connect to Baba, because that's the attraction now for safety, for protection, for security, for support, for strength. All these things will be a natural attraction if I am consistently doing my chart of remembrance, basically doing Amrit Vela, doing traffic control, doing the evening meditations. And throughout the day, outside of those, if there's something in the situation, something in nature, something that's happening in the world, I don't consume myself with what's happening in the world, but I retrieve. I kind of take myself away, I retrieve myself from all of that. I step back and I just go into Baba's remembrance, and that protects me. But what he says it's protecting you from, it's protecting you from being affected by the influence of the vibrations of these things outside of you. And so the more you keep your chart of remembrance and you're tracking it, as you do it, you are in that moment, those 60 seconds, those 3 minutes, those 2 minutes, you are intentionally becoming aware that Baba is protecting you from the vibrations of the outside world. And you make sure you put it in your chart. You track it. It's a tool to track. And so he says, when you're protected from the influences of what's happening in the outer world, whether that outer world also includes what's happening in your body, then you will not be affected by the upheaval of the external situations, nor by memories that are lying within you that may create an upheaval as well, because of you making sure you put it in your chart. So Baba says that, how do I know that my chart, how will my chart reflect this? That when you are doing your chart of remembrance, particularly at night, when you're looking at your whole day of all these tracks that you have done, and oh, that was a beautiful realization I got in that moment when I did my traffic control. He says, write it down as soon as you see it. As soon as you experience it. So at the end of the day, you will be seeing a kind of a pattern of the experiences you had of every traffic control. Then he says, what will be reflected back to you after a consistency, say after 6 months of doing this, he says, you will see your pattern of transformation. And the pattern of transformation that you will see is that on the one hand, a lot of the residual subtle remnants of past karmic accounts are burned. You will feel your purity then. You will feel the emergence of that purity. And on the other hand, there will be a lot of happiness and lightness within you. And so he says, when you have these two experiences showing up after 6 months in your chart of every day writing that chart, and after 6 months, if this is a double experience you've had from keeping your chart of remembrance, it means you have used the accurate method. You have done your chart according to the accurate method of remembrance. And he says, this is what will make you very, very powerful, because the power, the awareness, he says 2 things, is that you have the awareness of Baba. And usually when you remember him, he's in your awareness. But along with awareness, you must also feel the power of Baba's love. And it is the power of Baba's love that gives you the lightness and the happiness, because it also burns away the remnants of those subtle karmic accounts that we carry. And then he says, in your remembrance of Baba, you don't have to remember him as something abstract, but remember him in a relationship. So you remember him as the father, you remember him as the teacher, you remember him as the guide, you remember him as the beloved in those moments, and then track it in your chart, write it in your chart. And then I want to stop there for you to, for us to discuss how what you've taken so far from these two. But there's a third one I'll mention very briefly, and I'm not going to go into the detail of it, but this is in loving now. Loving was the remembrance, learning was with the senses, and this is now living. So Baba says, when he says you're living, your life is that you need to live it, he's always talking about relationships. How are you living? You're always living in relationship to something or to someone. So Baba says, when it comes to relationship, keeping a chart of your relationship with others, with yourself, and with Baba, he says, the key virtue that you should have as an aim for the chart is contentment. And he says, when you have that contentment as your aim for living, then what contentment is equal to is maturity, is spiritual maturity. When there is contentment in the soul will naturally adopt a spiritual maturity of its own. So he says that for these 6 months, again, check 3 things in relationships, but connect it to contentment. And he says, the first thing you will do is be a detached observer and check your own self. Are you content with yourself, with your progress, with the quality of your thoughts, and with the quality of your feelings? When it comes to contentment, that's what you'll check. He said, secondly, what you will check is contentment that comes after your remembrance of the Father. So am I having the quality of remembrance of Baba according to what Baba would like me to have? Am I keeping this chart of remembrance so that I can understand Baba's method of how to remember him? And then am I drawing on Baba's Shakti, Baba's power, and am I living it through my thoughts, my words, my actions? Because if I could track this in terms of contentment, then I will know whether Baba is pleased with me or not. And Baba will be pleased with me when I use the method that he has given to me that would bring me a deep sense of contentment. And that contentment is I'm doing what he's asking me to do. And I'm feeling that Baba is pleased with me. So that's making the Father content with me, or feeling the Father's contentment for me. And then thirdly, he says, is the family. Am I content with the family, recognizing that everyone has their own part to play? Is the family content with me based on my recognition of that, which means giving them space to be who they are and to play whatever it is they have to play without me judging them, or without me having bad feelings for them, or without me having, not good wishes for them. And he says, if I could do that, then the family will be content with me. And he says, this is the right method. Contentment is the right method when it comes to living your life in relationship to others. because he says this contentment is what is going to make you, it's going to make your mind, it's going to make your intellect, it's going to make your actions, it's going to make your relationships stable and unshakable. And so you're going to have that stability because of your contentment. And so he says contentment is also a way of getting blessings from others, blessings from Baba, and blessings from your own self. So these are the three ways that Baba wants us to write our charts. And so I'll stop there now so you could ask me questions.
Om Shanti, sister. Would you please share the Murli date?
Oh, I did not take the Murli date. Sorry. I just pulled it from the Murli search. So if you go onto the Murli search, you will find these Murlis. One was of 6 to 9. I know that for sure. But I think the other two were from 9 to 3, but I don't have the full dates.
Okay, no worries. Okay, thank you.
Now, I'm sure you all are writing charts. Do you write your charts in that way? Because you see, if we write our charts, I gave sorrow to this one. How are you going to change giving sorrow to that one if you didn't know which senses deceived you in that moment? Because giving sorrow to someone is being deceived by a sense organ. And what causes the sense organ to be deceived is a sanskara that's lying within you. It's a pattern of giving sorrow. And it comes through the sense organ as an illusion. Because if you just, say, I give this one sorrow, but you don't kind of stop to contemplate, but why did I give them sorrow? What happened that caused me to give sorrow? What was going on within me? And that is just like, it's a chart, but it's a very surface level chart. But the chart is intended for you to transform through a spiritual progress. And so it's check and change, it's stop and stalk. Or it's like being detached and loving to yourself. It's starting with the half empty or half full glass. Contentment is always, is it half empty or is it half full? And if it's half full, you're starting off with contentment and you're filling it. So these are the three ways that Baba, the basic one is with your senses. The second one is remembrance of Baba. And the third is your contentment.
A relationship. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, sister, is there any like a form, like in a table form, or some just write a longhand and like a text?
Well, you see, a chart is a tracking tool. When you're charting your course,
Mhm.
is it you are creating your own graph
Right.
based on exploring your day. You do it on a daily basis. So there's an exploration happening throughout the day with yourself and what's going on within you. And at night, you're charting that course by creating a graph as such.
Okay, not just the time.
No.
No
You
time is not involved in this.
you could put it as time, but if you just put the minutes you spent, then it becomes something more it's just numbers.
I think it's more of we have to keep a track of our senses. So then you can't make a graph out of it. I don't know how.
Yeah, well, you could do a graph. You could put like when they track the when they are giving you a kind of a what the weather will be like, for instance.
I see.
They're doing it. Well, it's going to be sunny,
Mhm.
so it's up high, or it's going to be rainy, and it
rainy.
comes down, the sun then comes down. So it's the same thing, is that the graph that you will prepare for yourself will
Mm,
be, you could do it in 2 pages if you're doing senses. So on one page, you could put the 5 senses,
mhm.
and on the other page, you could put how you progressed, how you were not deceived. So one will be the illusions with the 5 senses, and on the other page, it will be how you overcame those illusions of the 5 senses.
I see.
So the 5 senses will be on one page in ignorance of something you've done.
Mm,
The other page, it will be on you're conquering them. You used the right method and you were able to change your vision. You would be able to change the way you listened. You were able to change, your touch, your smell, your whatever. So you could then, that's the basic thing though.
So as a beginner, I'll just do the senses only level 1 in the beginning. Is
Yes,
that
you do
okay?
that.
Is that
That's
okay?
absolutely okay. And I think all of you may want to start with level 1.
Yes, because that's difficult.
may
I mean,
want-
it's not easy, but
But including level 1, you must also track your remembrance of Baba.
yes.
I would say you do 2. You do level 1 and level 2.
Okay.
And so as you are looking at your senses and creating a relationship with your senses, remember at your traffic controls, every time you stop and take that minute, those 60 seconds to be with Baba, make sure you're drawing Baba's love so that you could understand what is the sanskara that's deceiving you through your senses.
Okay.
All right, so do both.
I see.
Both. And you start at the simplest of simple, and that's habits and behavior. Because he says the way you will know your progress is through your habits.
Yes.
The habits
I
that you
think idea of 2 pages is good. That way one can.
Yeah, what I will ask Kiran to do is to capture it in a graph form and send it to all of you. She did that very well with discernment 1. And so I'm going to ask her to take this and to make a graph for all of you and send it to all of you. So for the next, say, Bob is asking us to do it for 6 months. Now, 6 months is changing patterns. 6 months is not just changing thoughts and changing my relationship with my senses, but it's changing your sanskaras that are the underpinning causes for everything that we do, we say, how we relate, and our preferences and all of that. So he's asking us to change it at that level. So if Kiran Ben, is that possible for you to do?
Sure, I'll try. And
I
you'll
could send
get
you
it
my
checked.
notes. I could
Yeah.
send you the notes that I have of these 2 levels. Maybe not even the contentment level, because that is a little bit too deep for you. Just the beginners and the intermediate, just Baba's remembrance and the senses.
Yes, that will help.
Just these two levels. And you create a graph for them, and then you do your chart for 6 months. Now there must be, as Baba says, this is a Shrimat I'm asking you to follow. And I'm asking you to be obedient to this Shrimat. And he says, your mistakes are made through the deception of your senses. And that your mistakes weigh very heavily on you in terms of repentance. So this is what you're doing. This is what you're tracking. You're removing now the tendency to make mistakes. And so you have less repentance and less regrets. And then you're doing it for 6 months consistently.
Okay, thank you.
Om Shanti, sister, may I ask a
Go ahead.
question?
Who is that?
Om Shanti, this is Niru.
Hello, Niru.
A beautiful, beautiful reflection and beautiful conversation, sister. This is my first time attending a charting session, and it's an honor to be here. So, can we just take one of the situation to see, because it could be a mix of different sense organs also.
Mhm.
If there's a situation where somebody's, even if nothing much has been said or simple word has triggered somebody to scream and shout at you and talk rudely. So, and in that situation, some sorrow is kind of sort of a little bit taken, though Baba Srimata is not to take sorrow. So if we have to chart this, how can one go about? And if one scenario, if there's some reaction, another scenario, let's say there's no reaction. And
Okay.
let's say I have been quiet. So how would we, taking this as an example of the sense perception, how do we chart this? That would be helpful here.
Okay, so you have your chart. Kiran has sent you your chart, and you're looking at the chart. So you now encounter a situation in which someone is saying something to you. Okay? Now, the thing about spiritual knowledge is understanding the method is very important. So the method for the senses is, one, my sanskaras work with my senses. So however my senses are going to perceive that situation that that person has created for me has got nothing to do with the person.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to do with me.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay? So that's the first understanding of a method. So this is the method now. So the person is ranting and raving and speaking awful things to me. And so I know a sanskar, this is how you have to know yourself, right? Because the whole thing about creating relationship with your senses is to get to know yourself. It's not to get to know someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So you will be preempted that when someone says that to me, the dragon of the sanskara that will raise its head would be my ego. How dare you speak to me like that? Who gave you the right to say those things to me? So that's the dragon of the head of the sanskara that is carrying heavy duty ego. Now, the method is you become a detached observer to what that person is saying. And you now, detached observer means you have turned your face within. You have actually, when you turn your face within, you turn all your senses within. And you are now working on that head of the dragon of the ego that has suddenly arisen within you.
The I.
The I, whatever, but mine is always the I of ego, the I of arrogance. And then I know it will turn to anger. And that anger will then be against me. I will be the first victim of the anger I'm about to feel. And I don't want to become a victim inside of me for someone else becoming the catalyst to do that to me. And so I will turn within, and this is where Baba says remembrance is important. So then I will turn within and I will go under the canopy of Baba's protection, and I will say to Baba, help tame this head of the dragon that is suddenly erupting inside of me. And I start doing my inner work of not allowing myself to be affected by the vibrations of that person or by the person making me a target of their frustrations.
Mm-hmm.
Baba says the reason why remembrance is important is that when these things arise in front of me, it's that vibrationally they will come and sit in my thoughts. And my thoughts will you see, thoughts are like horses. As soon as they get a little bit of a hit, they start running. And so those thoughts will want to run and hit back. So you now, as a soul, holding yourself on the Baba's remembrance, looking at the head of the dragon, you're also controlling those thoughts from reacting. And the thoughts from being affected by the vibrations that the person is sending to you. So it's not so much the words that he or she is saying to you, but the vibrations filled in the words that's penetrating and coming into you.
Mhm.
And so Baba's remembrance safeguards the soul from vibrations, not from words, because the words will be uttered, the words will be spoken, and you cannot stop that. But what you could stop is the vibrations of the words penetrating the soul.
I think it's the pitch also that shakes my heart.
But whatever it is, but the
Yeah,
tone,
so that
exactly,
the ears is
tone of
also
voice.
the
Yeah, the
ears
tone of
also.
voice is also something. So you know your triggers, right? You know your triggers. So you know when you go on the Baba's remembrance, you put on one of Baba's, say, Murlis, you know the tone of Baba's voice. And it's a very soothing voice. You put on the drills. It's a very soothing thing. So this is called doing a chart. I detached from that, but I did something. Now I went away. He says, don't stand. Do not stand in front of someone that is creating something inside of you that your senses are absorbing. Because it's not just one sense, it's all your senses are absorbing it now.
Mhm.
He says, walk away from it.
Mhm.
So when you walk away from it, you're now going to say, let me do my chart here. Let me pull out my diary and write something, or let me just go to Baba's drill and spend 3 minutes in Baba's drills. So that then takes the soul away from it, and then you document it in your chart. Because if you don't document it in the chart, it's not a learning moment for you. Any moment that becomes a learning moment, you should capture it. So
So
that
in
at the
this
end of
case, the
the day,
eye, so the eye of ego came up, and here at least the ears, because the ears have sensitivity to the loud pitch, and which gives that emotion or the sensation of the heart shaking, and especially in the car. You know, it's always in the car where I'm kind of trapped and cannot run away. So, and I just go in silence. Very rarely I'll speak back. By the time I just stay quiet for hours, not speaking much. So I had pulled out the Murli where Baba said, you are more elevated, and the respect that Baba gave, this self-respect today, that you are much more elevated than I am. So there I was playing the key of Baba's knowledge. I'm loved and respected by Baba, that I have to, maybe this relationship of husband and wife is where I am not having the more relationship with Baba as my husband, where I'm still having some dependency on that other soul maybe coming. So would that be of relationship, remembrance, ears, I, ego, all that in the chart in this scenario?
So you will capture that realization that you had. So right as soon as you get out, or even in the car, you're not driving, just write it. Just write it down. And that will become your basis of a consistency of making the effort in relation to that person.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got the touching of why it's creating such havoc within you. The tone of voice, the choice of words, the space even. You will start resisting the space of being in a car. Because in that space, this is where everything is showing up for you. So the chart means you capture it in your chart and you begin to track. You've already been touched as to the foundation. You're not looking at Baba enough as your husband. You haven't created a relationship with him as the husband. So this physical husband is impacting you more than Baba is impacting you. So then you will make, your chart will be, how do I make Baba a more powerful force than the force of this other human being in this particular relationship?
Thank you, Baba.
To be your focus, and you must capture it in your chart. Only then you will see if you're progressing or not. All right, and it could be this is how people write the most profound books on their experiences, because they've kept a chart of what's happening to them in the moment and the realizations they're having and how they've overcome it, and it helps so many other people.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you, Baba. Thank you, sister.
Sharon, you wanted to say something?
Om Shanti. First of all, I apologize for being late. I allowed myself to be distracted. Anyway, I chart, but what I heard is gonna help me. I'm gonna add to, because what I do is I chart time spent with Baba, Amrit Vela, Murli class, all those times. I got a chart that I got from this book, Creative Raj Yoga. It's on page 134 in that book is a time chart. But I also write. I write. I have not been as consistent as I should be. I don't write every single day, but I write about occurrences. Sometimes I
Whenever
write.
you eat fish, you have to be prepared for bones. Nobody can take out every bone.
Sorry, that was.
Sometimes I write about points from the Murli. Sometimes I write about events that happened during the day and how I handled them, whether I was successful or whether I was not successful, so that I could get the help that I need. So that's how I've been charting. But all what I heard is all new. The three, the senses, the remembrance, and contentment. So I'm gonna listen to the whole recording, and I would like to be able to get back to you. That's all.
Yeah, please, because one of the cautions Baba gave in the Murlis is that you might be making the effort, but if you're not making the effort according to the right method, the effort will not bring you the success.
Yeah. And I kept changing the way I was doing the chart because I wasn't able to see the progress. I wasn't able to see the change. I could see the change in the way I handle things, the way I don't, tell people off anymore. And I could see those things, but I wanted to be able to see the progress on a daily basis, the change, the transformation. And I kept changing, doing different things, trying to get that. And so I know that when I listen to the whole recording, I'm going to get some help, and I definitely would like to get back to you on it.
Right, and Kieran is going to make a kind of a graph for you. But also, the thing is, when you're doing the first one, level 1, beginners, it is senses, it is habits, and it is behavior. So you're checking all three.
Mhm.
And the thing about how do I know I'm progressing in the chart of my senses is I will become the conqueror of my own illusions. And an illusion could be, I would say yes to doing something that I don't want to do. And then I blame someone else by saying, well, you're a senior, so I had to follow you, and it's Baba's yagya, and I have to do whatever I'm being told to do. If I was keeping a chart, my illusions will never deceive me to that extent.
Sister, can you please elaborate on that?
Okay,
How
so
is that so illusion? You're saying yes to something that you don't want to do, and you're doing it because you can't say no to Baba's service in the yagi.
yeah, And then I end up blaming someone else.
Because of them, I have to do because they asked me to do.
Exactly. But it doesn't give me contentment.
Mhm.
So the elaboration is, if I've done that, and at the end of it, I felt an emptiness, a void, a discontentment, then I chart about it. I chart the course of from the time I said yes to this service to the outcome of the service of what I'm feeling. Because success in service is how it makes me feel. I didn't stop to think about why I'm saying yes to this ask. And so when it came to the end of the day, me stocking up on my attainments from doing that service, I had no attainments. I only had complaints. And so you did that. So you see what is happening. Next time round, you have to pause. You have to stop. Well, this person is asking me to do something in the name of Baba's service, and I'm resisting it. I don't want to do it. So I have to be honest. I say, you know what? Every time I'm asked to do this, there's a resistance within me, and I don't want to do it. Give me some time to figure out why I'm resisting it. And that in a service, you have to see that as a service to yourself in a profound way. And then sort it out. Just don't say it as a reaction. Say no as a reaction, but say no with the humility to check yourself as to why is there resistance. Now, if that instrument is giving you that service for your self-improvement, they will cooperate with you. So the chart also, it allows for transformation, but it also allows for transparency and honesty with oneself. Because we're so caught up in image, how would it look if I say no? That I'm not dealing with the reality of what that yes is doing to me. And I have to look at that as well.
Shanti, Sister Cat.
Wait a minute, Sharon. Let me just finish with Ragni. Ragni, did you get it? Did you understand it?
Yes, I still have so because I was like you said, you need 6 months and then you see changes in patterns.
Right.
What I was doing is like changing the graphs and the topics, but then it's just like ticking a box. And then every 2 months it would be different. So with these three levels, senses, remembrance, and contentment, do we like cover the full scope of our daily activities, behaviors that is happening?
Yeah, because if you want to go with all three levels, you know they're deeper levels. One is surface, senses. The other one is how much did I use Baba's remembrance during the day to fill myself with Baba's love and Baba's power. And thirdly, how contented am I at the end of the day?
Okay, no, it's clear.
And then you do it you do it for 6 months. Now, if after 3 months you feel, okay, I think I need a little bit more, then you get in touch with me. Because this is not something I want you to stay on your own doing. You know, I'm here for you. And if you want some help, if you want to talk through something, I'm also here for that. Because I think out of the whole series, the culmination of keeping a chart is very important, because keeping a chart makes you an instrument, a proper instrument. Keeping a chart helps you, and it was just one sense, which is drishti. So you may want to just focus on drishti for the next 6 months, and the rest of the senses will be cooperating as well. But your primary focus is drishti. And thirdly, keeping a chart is the way to discern.
Correct.
Practical way of discernment. So I feel out for this culmination lesson of the chart is really going to help you with the other subjects that we discussed in a very meaningful and practical way.
Okay, no, thank you so much. New insights and very interesting. I'm ready to explore.
Great.
Thank you.
Sharon, you were saying something and then we close.
Yeah, I
If there's
just
nothing.
wanted to quickly say that the charting that I've been doing has been beneficial in that it brings about a new level of honesty. When you chart, the honesty is there. You of course you don't want to tell Baba fibs. so when you're writing, you are you compelled to tell the truth. You know, I consider myself a honest soul, you know, but that's me talking. That's me talking. So the chart has been good, but I look forward to doing it the way you are suggesting that it be done, because it's what Baba said, and it's good. So thank you so much. That's all.
Right. And if I have the time, which I could have, I can go back and reference the dates of the Murli as Rupa asked. But I just really just go into them, look for the word, and then I have to take what Baba is saying really and read it about 5 or 6 times to grasp the method and to extract the method for you from what he's saying. Because, you know, Baba speaks in a poetic, flowery language, and he goes off on this wave and that wave, and then he comes back. So you have to make sense and meaning and put it all together. And so that's what I attempt to do for you. And so, yes, so even though this is the last session, it is also a session that is really, you may need help with the 6 months. And if we start another session in, say, it's got to be, it will be July, maybe we do the whole session on chart. I mean, I don't know how you would like to do it. And so you do it more in bits. And finally, I must say that it has been a tremendous opportunity for me. Thank you all for asking for this. I myself have seen how much I had moved away from really using Baba's Murli as foundational to my thinking and to my understanding. And you brought me right back to that. And now I only use his Murlis for my understanding and my thinking, and even my application of things, definitely my application of things. So I feel that you reinforce that, and thank you for doing that. And I also will be doing my chart for 6 months. And so even to take this lesson up, I did my chart. The moment I knew I was doing chart writers for the last 2 weeks, there was nothing else I was thinking about but the chart and doing it and making sure I had the discipline, because doing a chart is a discipline. And we might be disciplined in our professions. We might be disciplined in our the tasks, our projects. But when it comes to self-discipline, we lack it. And this is what Baba wants us to have, a discipline of soul consciousness. Erica.
Sister Gayatri, I wanted to ask, in the beginning, you said that, is it that we will continue these conversations? You will do more of them, and how often will you do them?
I'm thinking Kieran and I will talk. I'm thinking of doing them seasonally. So I did a spring one. So we'll think about doing a summer one, but there will only be seven sessions in the series, right, of the season. And then we'll do one in the fall, and then we'll do one in the winter. And so, but there will be 7 sessions per week. I know you haven't agreed. Lena was trying to get a day that all of you would agree on, and there was no agreement on it. So I may have to eventually choose a day that I'm comfortable with, and then you all agree to it. Because Thursday doesn't work because of inside sessions. Friday doesn't work because of the Sabbath. Tuesday doesn't work for me because I review the Murli most times. Wednesday and Monday, then that leaves Wednesday and Monday. So it's either Wednesday or Monday.
That will be fine,
Thank you.
whatever suits you, sister.
I just want to say I'm grateful the fact that you are doing this. So I have no compunction whatsoever. I will honor whatever you are there to give us this through Baba. And so I'm really grateful. Whether I can be there or not at that moment, I'll listen to the recording. But I'm so grateful that you're doing these. So Om Shanti, thank you. It's all fine.
All right, so I'm at Peace Village. I need to go downstairs. So let us now do our traffic control, and I'll see you soon and often, okay?
Sister Gayatri,
Yes.
this is Rashmi. This is the first time I am on this Zoom with you, and this is something I really wanted. How you're doing it from Baba's Murli and with your explanation. And I'm very grateful and thankful. Can you give me 1 minute more?
Yeah. Are you on
Uh,
camera, Rashmi?
Um, I put it on now.
Yeah.
This is me.
Okay. Mhm.
Yeah, from what Sister Nero was saying, similar situation with a boss, but I over the years have had experiences, and anger and all of that does not come up with me. I tend to look at it really as an observer when it happened. But what happens is that I grieve, or it reoccurs in my mind afterwards, like in sadness. And I don't know how really to, but listening to you this afternoon, I think I have to, like, you mentioned something about making Baba your the only thing in your life, like your husband. You give an example. And I think listening to you this afternoon can help me in such situations.
And doing your chart.
And doing the chart.
Doing the
Yeah.
chart would remove the sadness, because the sadness is coming from the sanskara.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's close with our traffic control, and lots of love to you.